would say that the judgment as to whether the Atheist Bus campaign is a waste of time and money really depends on what you wanted to get out of it. Because for me there are a number of things. First off, it was a bit of fun. We're used to seeing adverts for Christianity all over the place, and I thought it would be a laugh to see one for atheism. Not least because it was obviously going to piss off all those humorless nuts who take this religious claptrap far too seriously. So really that was just my juvenile sense of humour at work. I'm certainly not expecting that anyone will be deconverted by it. As a bit of fun, I think I've gained my money's worth. For about the same amount of cash that it would have cost to go to the cinema, I get to have a chuckle every time I see the ad or think about it. Secondly, I reckon you could view this as a piece of performance art. The original concept came from comedy writer Ariane Shireen after she saw an advert for God on the side of a bus. And her proposal was that if just 1,000 or so atheists donated a £5 each, we could have our own advert to counter this junk. And this generated a surprisingly positive response. Now, one function of art is to provoke a reaction in people, and often to make them think. And these ads are certainly fulfilling that function. Thirdly, it's publicity for a point of view that goes largely unspoken in our society. Now, I'm fortunate enough to live in a part of the world where religion, for the most part, isn't such a big deal. Most people don't really care what religion another person is or isn't. Outspoken religious belief certainly doesn't seem to feature in the UK as much as it does in, say, the US. And any public figure who starts making their religious beliefs a feature of their work rapidly alienates most of the population here. I think that religious belief is seen in the UK as a private matter, and that's helped to keep it restrained to some degree. But there are still occasions where these superstitions are granted greater influence than they really should have. And one good example of this is bishops in the House of Lords, the lawmaking institution for England and Wales. So here we have people shaping our society using criteria based on their personal interpretation of a belief system that's irrelevant to most of the country's citizens. What the Atheist Bus campaign is doing here is creating a first stepping stone to raising awareness, not just for atheism, but for the British Humanist Association who ran the ad. And it's also been followed up with another campaign by the BHA. The BHA campaigns against state-funded faith schools, for example, and is actively working to prevent religious superstition from damaging the quality of life of people living in the UK. And I put a link up on the sidebar for the BHA's website so that you can have a look at their mission statement for yourself. So this Atheist Bus advert is just that. It's an advert, and it's doing exactly what advertising is supposed to do. It's getting noticed. The campaign in the UK raised more than £130,000. Only £5,500 was required for the original conception, so more ads are planned. And similar campaigns are in progress throughout Europe. Although £130,000 might be enough to buy a plot of land or an office in the US, you aren't going to be able to buy much or rent much in the UK for 130 grand. In London you might get a studio flat, and it really isn't going to go very far in renting a commercial property. As far as the ad's use of the word probably, the reason that it says there probably is no God is so that it can comply with UK advertising laws. The time-honoured argument from theists that we're all heartily sick and tired of is you can't prove there is no God. And of course they're absolutely correct in that statement. We don't have any proof that there's not a God, any more than we have proof for non-existence of the flying spaghetti monster. And therefore, if we say there is no God, we could potentially fall foul of UK advertising standards. But it also torpedoes the accusation that atheism is just one more faith-based belief system, when most of us would say that our atheism, our lack of belief in God, is based on lack of evidence for the existence of God. For most of us, probably is so close to 100% that any doubt is vanishingly small, but any rational person has to be open to the idea that there might be a God, however unlikely. Saying probably protects the advert from being withdrawn because it's making false claims, as is currently being attempted by Christian Voice. But it also is more accurate, and it demonstrates a rational mindset rather than just another fanatical belief system. I think another significant consideration arising from this campaign is the fact that all of the funding was from grassroots support. This was a separate, self-contained project, and it didn't divert funds from anywhere else. The people who donated did so specifically for this initiative. And what's more is the scale of the response. The organisers really thought they were going to struggle to raise the $5,500 that they needed for their ad, and they've raised more than 24 times that amount. So that suggests that atheists actually want to be heard. You're saying that money from atheists should be used to do real work. Well, this advert is raising the profile of the BHA to do just that. The mission statement for the BHA is this: our vision is of a world without religious privilege or discrimination, where people are free to live good lives on the basis of reason, experience and shared human values. We promote humanism, campaign for an open society and a secular state, and work with others of different beliefs for the common good. So, as I've said, the BHA is working towards these goals and it's making progress. So how is that different from the infrastructure and campaigning that you're proposing for atheists? This is a coordinated, organised effort, and it's not associated with any individual's name. I've also put a link up in the sidebar for the American Humanist Association, and I'd be interested to hear from you how its goals differ from what you're proposing, and why. Whether the UK Atheist Bus ads succeed in the long run, or whether they just fade away into oblivion, remains to be seen. But for me, if this raises the profile of the BHA for even a short time, then I see it as money well spent.